Welcome back, listeners, to Sandman Stories Presents. We are back again in South Africa, reading the stories collected by James A. HONEÍ. Here are four with a common theme of Jackal and Lion. Lion seems to be a bit of a bully, but he also doesn't like it when Jackal is pretending to beat Mrs. Jackal. Some content notes. Eland is a type of antelope that lives in southern Africa. A krantz is a cliff. And a ream is a twisting together of rawhides into a rope. Okay, let's begin. Story number 1. The Lion and Jackal. Lion had now caught a large eland, which lay dead on the top of a high bank. Lion was thirsty and wanted to go and drink water. Jackal, look after my eland. I am going to get a drink. Don't you eat any. Very well, Uncle Lion. Lion went to the river, and Jackal quietly removed a stone, on which Lion had to step to reach the bank on his return. After that, Jackal and his wife ate heartily of the eland. Lion returned, but he could not scale the bank. Jackal, help me, he shouted. Yes, Uncle Lion. I will let down a rope, and then you can climb up. Jackal whispered to his wife. Give me one of the old thin hide ropes. And then aloud he added, Wife, give me one of the strong buffalo ropes, so Uncle Lion won't fall. His wife gave him an old rotten rope. Jackal and his wife first ate ravenously of the meat, then gradually let the rope down. Lion seized it and struggled up. When he neared the brink, Jackal gave the rope a jerk. It broke, and Lion began to rolled the whole way down, and finally lay at the foot near the river. Jackal began to beat a dry hide that lay there as he howled, cried, and shouted, Wife, why did you give me such a bad rope that caused Uncle Lion to fall? Lion heard the row and roared, Jackal, stop beating your wife. I will hurt you if you don't cease. Help me to climb up. Uncle Lion, I will give you a rope. Whispering again to his wife, Give me one of the old thin hide ropes, and shouting aloud again, Give me a strong buffalo rope, wife, that will not break again with Lion. Jackal gave out the rope, and when Lion had nearly reached the top, he cut the rope through, snap, and Lion began to roll to the bottom. Jackal again beat on the hide and shouted, Wife, why did you give me such a rotten rope? Didn't I tell you to give me a strong one? Lion roared, Jackal, stop beating your wife at once. Help me instantly, or you will be sorry. Wife, Jackal said aloud, give me now the strongest rope you have. And aside to her, give me the worst rope of the lot. Jackal again let down a rope. But just as Lion reached the top, Jackal gave a strong tug and broke the rope. Poor old Lion rolled down the side of the hill and laid there roaring from pain. He had been fatally hurt. Jackal inquired, Uncle Lion, have you hurt yourself? Have you much pain? Wait a while. I am coming directly to help you. Jackal and his wife slowly walked away. Oh, what a mean jackal. Well, a trickster. Okay, story number 2. Lion and Jackal. The lion and the jackal agreed to hunt on shares, for the purpose of laying in a stock of meat for the winter months for their families. As Lion was by far the more expert hunter of the two, the jackal suggested that he himself should be employed in transporting the game to their dens, and that Mrs. Jackal and the little jackals should prepare and dry the meat, adding that they would take care that Mrs. Lion and her family should not want. This was agreed to by the lion, and the hunt commenced. After a very successful hunt, which lasted for some time, the lion returned to see his family, and also to enjoy, as he thought, a plentiful supply of his spoil. When, to his utter surprise, he found that Mrs. Lion and all the young lions on the point of death from sheer hunger and in a mangy state. The jackal, it appeared, had only given them a few entrails of the game, and in such limited quantities as barely to keep them alive, always telling them that they, i.e. the lion himself, had been most unsuccessful in their hunting, while his own family was reveling in abundance, and each member of it was sleek and fat. This was too much for Lion to bear. He immediately started off in a terrible fury, vowing certain death to the jackal and all his family, wherever he should meet them. The jackal was more or less prepared for a storm, and had taken precaution to remove all of his belongings to the top of a krantz, accessible only by the most difficult and circuitous path, which he alone knew. When the lion saw him on the krantz, the jackal immediately greeted him by calling out, "Good morning, Uncle Lion." "How dare you call me uncle, you impudent scoundrel," roared out the lion in a voice of thunder, "after the way in which you have behaved to my family." "Oh, uncle, how shall I explain matters? That beast of a wife of mine—" Whack, whack was heard, as he beat with a stick on a dry hide, which was a mere pretense for Mrs. Jackal's back, while that lady was pre-instructed to scream whenever he operated on the hide, which she did with a vengeance, joined by the little jackals, who set up a most doleful chorus. "That wretch," said Jackal, "it is all her doing. I shall kill her straight off." And away he again belabored the hide, while his wife and children uttered such a dismal howl that the lion begged of him to leave off flogging his wife. After cooling down a little, he invited Uncle Lion to come up and have something to eat. The lion, after several ineffectual attempts to scale the precipice, had to give up. The jackal, always ready for emergencies, suggested that a reim should be lowered to haul up his uncle. This was agreed to, and when the lion was drawn up about halfway by the whole family of jackals, the reim was cleverly cut, and down went the lion with a tremendous crash, which hurt him very much. Upon this the jackal again performed upon the hide with tremendous force, for their daring to give him such a rotten reim, and Mrs. Jackal and the little ones responded with some fearful screams and yells. He then called loudly out to his wife for a strong buffalo reim which would support any weight. This again was lowered and fastened to the lion, when all hands pulled away at their uncle. And, just when he had reached so far that he could look over the precipice into the pots to see all the fat meat cooking and all the biltongs hanging out to dry, the reim was again cut, and the poor lion fell with such force that he was fairly stunned for some time. After the lion had recovered his senses, the jackal, in a most sympathizing tone, suggested that he was afraid that it was no use to attempt to haul him up onto the precipice, and recommended instead that a nice fat piece of eland's breast be roasted and dropped into the lion's mouth. The lion, half famished with hunger and much bruised, readily accepted the offer, and sat eagerly awaiting the fat morsel. In the meantime, the jackal had a round stone made red hot, and wrapped a quantity of inside fat, or suet, round it, to make it appear like a ball of fat. When the lion saw it held out, he opened his capacious mouth to the utmost extent, and the wily jackal cleverly dropped the hot ball right into it, which ran through the poor old beast, killing him on the spot. It need hardly be told that there was great rejoicing on the precipice that night. Oh, everybody's playing their part. Poor lion. I do feel bad for him. In that story. Not in this next one. Story number 3. The Hunt of Lion and Jackal. Lion and Jackal, it is said, were one day lying in wait for eland. Lion shot with a bow and missed, but Jackal hit it and sang out, "Ha! Ha!" Lion said, "No, you did not shoot anything. It was I who hit." Jackal answered, "Yea, my father, thou hast hit." Then they went home, in order to return when the eland was dead, and cut it up. Jackal, however, turned back, unknown to Lion. hid his nose so that the blood ran on the spoor of the eland, and followed their track thus, in order to cheat Lion. When he had gone some distance, he returned by another way to the dead eland, and creeping into its carcass, cut out all the fat. Meanwhile, Lion followed the blood-stained spoor of the jackal, thinking that it was eland blood, and only when he had gone some distance did he find out that he had been deceived. He then returned on Jackal's spoor and reached the dead eland, where, finding Jackal in its carcass, seized him by his tail and drew him out with a swing. Lion upbraided Jackal with these words. "Why do you cheat me?" Jackal answered, "No, my father, I do not cheat you. You may know it, I think. I prepared this fat for you, father." Lion said, "Then take the fat and carry it to your mother, the lioness." And he gave him the lungs to take to his own wife and children. When Jackal arrived, he did not give the fat to the lion's wife, but to his own wife and children. He gave, however, the lungs to the lion's wife, and he pelted Lion's little children with the lungs, saying, "You children of the big-pawed one, you big-pawed ones." He said to Lioness, "I go to help my father, the lion." But he went far away with his wife and children. So that was a shorter one, but essentially Lion cheats Jackal and Jackal cheats Lion's family. So it all goes round and round. All right, and the fourth and final story, the story of Lion and Little Jackal. Little Jackal one day went out hunting when he met Lion. Lion proposed that they should hunt together on condition that if a small antelope was killed, it was Little Jackal's, and if a large one was killed, it was to be Lion's. Little Jackal agreed to this. The first animal killed was a large eland. Lion was very glad, and he said to Little Jackal, "I will continue hunting while you go to my house and call my children to carry the meat home." Little Jackal replied, "Yes, I agree to that." Lion went away to hunt. While he was gone, Little Jackal went to his own house and called his own children to carry away the meat. He said, "Lion takes me for a fool if he thinks I will call his children while my own are dying with hunger." So Little Jackal's children carried their meat to their home on top of a high rock, where the only way to get to their house was by means of a rope. Lion caught nothing more, and after a time he went home and asked his wife where the meat was. She told him there was no meat. He said, "Did not Little Jackal bring a message to my children to carry the meat?" His wife replied, "No, he was not here. We are still dying with hunger." Lion then went to Little Jackal's house, but he could not get up the rock to it. So he sat down by the water, waiting. After a time, Little Jackal went to get some water. He was close to the water when he saw Lion. He at once ran away, and Lion ran after him. He ran into a hole under a tree, but Lion caught his tail before he got far in. He said to him, "That is not my tail you have hold of. It is a root of the tree. If you do not believe me, take a stone and strike it. See if any blood comes." Lion let go the tail and went for a stone to prove what it was. While he was gone for the stone, Little Jackal went far into the hole. When Lion returned, he could not be found. Lion lay down by the hole and waited. After a long time, Little Jackal wanted to come out. He went to the entrance and looked around, but he could not see Lion. To make sure, he said, "Ho, I see you, my master, although you are in hiding." Lion did not move from the place where he lay concealed. Then Little Jackal went out, and Lion pursued him, but he got away. Lion watched for him, and one day, when Little Jackal was out hunting, he came upon him in a place where he could not escape. Lion was just about to spring upon him, when Little Jackal said softly, "Be still. Do you not see that bushbuck on the other side of the rock? I'm glad you have come to help me. Just remain here while I run around and drive him toward you." Lion did so, and Little Jackal made his escape. At another time there was a meeting of the animals, and Lion was chief at the meeting. Little Jackal wanted to attend, but there was a law made that no one should be present unless he has horns. So Little Jackal took wax out of the nest of bees and made horns for himself with it. He fastened the horns on his head and went to the meeting. Lion did not know him on account of the horns, but he sat near the fire and went to sleep. When the horns melted, Lion looked at him and saw who it was. He immediately tried to catch him, but Little Jackal was quick in springing away. He ran under an overhanging rock and sang out, "Help! Help! This rock is falling upon me!" Lion went for a pole to prop up the rock that he might get at Little Jackal. While he was away, Little Jackal escaped. After that, they became companions again and went hunting another time. They killed an ox. Lion said, "I will watch it while you carry the pieces away." Lion gave him the breast and said, "Take this to my wife." Little Jackal took it to his own wife. When he returned, Lion gave him a shin and said, "Take this to your wife." Little Jackal took the shin to Lion's house. Lion's wife said, "I cannot take this, because it should not come here." Little Jackal thereupon struck Lion's wife in the face and went back to the place where the ox was killed. Lion gave him a large piece of meat and said, "Take this to my wife." Little Jackal took it to his own wife. This continued till the ox was finished. Then they both went home. When Lion arrived at his house, he found that there was a weeping in his family. His wife said, "Is it you who sent Little Jackal to beat me and my children? And is it you who sent this shin? Did I ever eat a shin?" When Lion heard this, he was very angry, and at once went to Little Jackal's house. When he reached the rock, Little Jackal looked down and said, "Who are you, and what is your name? And whose son are you? And where are you from? And where are you going to? And whom do you want? And what do you want him for?" Lion replied, "I have merely come to see you. I wish you to let down the rope." Little Jackal let down a rope made of mouse skins, and when Lion climbed a little way up, the rope broke, and he fell and was hurt. He then went home. This was an interesting set of stories. I do like the back and forth between Lion and Jackal, each one outsmarting him. I really like when Jackal outsmarts Lion by doing stuff like holding up the rock or saying, "Oh no, that's not my tail, that's a root. Why don't you go and get something to hit it?" And Jackal's pretty clever. I don't like all the wife beating in this. Again, it's from a different time. It really comes off as ugh. This week's shout-out goes to Uncanny Japan. Teresa Matsura is an author and American expat who has lived over half of her life in a small fishing town in Japan. Her fluency in Japanese allows her to do research in parts of the culture, legends, folktales, and superstitions that are little known to Western audiences. A lot of what she digs up informs her stories, while the rest finds its way onto her blog and into this podcast, Uncanny Japan. So, if you like folktales as much as I do, and you really want some amazing Japanese stories, I highly recommend Uncanny Japan. And keep an eye out for her second podcast coming soon, where she uses her soft, calm voice and other genres of old stories to help you off to sleep. This week's listener shout-out is to Sao Paulo, Brazil. You are 25% of my Brazilian listeners. Thank you, and good night.